Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In episode number 2 of my Roth IRA series, I talked about my dividend rocket strategy and how I'm using high yield dividend ETFs to generate income and contribute more money to my Roth IRA account. Now, this rocket strategy has 3 phases, and I'm currently in phase number 1, which is to generate $4,000 annually from XDTE and YMAX. Now, in episode number 3 for the Roth IRA update, I'm going to talk about the last 2 distributions I received from XDTE and YMAX. I'll talk about how my portfolio is performing, and I'll also talk about some changes I made to the portfolio. Okay, before I talk about July's payout, I just want to apologize in advance. I'm still traveling and I'm currently in Vietnam, so sometimes there's a lot of honking noises from motorbikes. So if you hear some noises in the background, I apologize. I'll be back in Taiwan next week, so hopefully the audio in future videos will be a lot better. Okay, so let's start off with the contributions. So far, I've contributed in the last 2 weeks $254, and the total for this year so far is about $3,234. Now, XDTE paid me 2 distributions for a total of $50.64, and YMAX paid me 2 distributions for a total of $60.46. So from my contribution and the income I generated from XDT and YMAX, the grand total is about $365. Now I sold 2 positions. I sold 35 shares of YMAX on July 31st, and I sold 25 shares of SCHB on July 22nd. Now I really didn't want to sell SCHB, but I wanted to make a small position into YETH, which is a covered call ETF by Roundhill Investments in the Ethereum space. With the transaction sales from SCHB and YMAX, I was able to buy 53 shares of YETH, which is about a half position, and my goal is to have 100 shares. Now, for the overall goal for the portfolio, my goal for the end of the year is to have 500 shares of SCHB. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about YETH later in the video, but first, let's talk about the results of my portfolio. Okay, so far, my portfolio has been keeping up with the S&P 500, which shouldn't be a surprise because my core holding is SCHB, which is a broad market ETF, and it more or less keeps pace with the S&P 500. Now, if we look at the last few months and we look at June's update, I reached an all-time high of $12,781. And in July's update, I reached a new all-time high of $13,552. For me, that's a pretty big accomplishment, especially since this account is only a few months old and the income from the high yield dividends have really been generating a lot of income and helped me reach some of my goals pretty fast. So I'm pretty happy with the results so far. Okay, so let's look at some individual holdings. SCHB has been doing pretty terrific in my portfolio. Looking at capital gains, it's about 17%, which I think that's great. XCT's dividend distributions has reached a total of about $353, so I'm pretty happy with that. YMAX is about $200 in distributions and growing, so I'm also happy with that. And YETH is a new position, which I'll talk about in just a few moments. Now, if we look at the goal for this portfolio, it's to reach $300,000 in 12 years. So far, I've achieved 5%, so still a long way to go. But looking at the next few years, by 2026 or around 2026, I should be around $25,000, and in 5 years, close to $100,000. And I think that's a pretty big accomplishment, considering that it took me like 8 to 9 years to reach $100,000 my taxable brokerage. So to reach 100K in 5 years in my Roth IRA, I think is a pretty big accomplishment. Okay, so let's look at YETH and ulty now. Wow, if you go on YouTube, you'll see a lot of channels promoting ulti. And ulti's been doing pretty good. I mean, the last 2 months, it's been pretty consistent. The NAV seems to be under control, and the dividend or distributions has been anywhere from 8 to 10 cents per share. So that's pretty consistent. So I can see why a lot of people have a lot of confidence in ulti. I too was thinking about adding ulti to my Roth IRA, but I just wasn't sure if that was the right move. So I wanted to see what else was in the market. And I did some comparisons between ETFs. And I looked at ulti versus YETH for July. And to my surprise, YETH is doing pretty good, about 3 times better than ulti. And it's really outperforming ulti this month. Now, I wasn't sure um, about YETH for the longest time because it isn't a space that I'm not too knowledgeable about in terms of blockchain technology and Bitcoin crypto space. There's still a lot for me to learn about, but I've been more curious about this space recently. Now, other people, they may have concern. I mean, when you look at this chart in the last 6 months, it's been taking a beating. And a lot of ETFs have, especially in the high yield space. But if you can see from April to now, there is some positive sentiment, and it looks like it's, rebounding a bit. But looking at this chart, I still wasn't really convinced until I heard news about the Genius Act on July 18th. And this act is supposed to provide some regulatory clarity in the stablecoin space. Now, I think that's good because we need more clarity in this space, more information, more transparency, more rules. And I think when we have these things in place, it's going to attract financial institutions, big financial institutions such as JP Morgan and Citigroup, because they know that there's growing significance of digital assets and there's going to be some advancements in tokenized deposits. So if fintech companies and these financial institutions want to stay relevant in an evolving financial landscape, they're going to have to start developing a presence in this area. Now, Tom Lee, who doesn't really need an introduction. He's been talking a lot about the Ethereum space, and he says that there are indirect implications for Ethereum. A lot of stablecoins operate on the Ethereum blockchain, and he has a lot of bullish opinions about Ethereum in general. And I think that's good because, Bitcoin has Michael Saylor as a spokesman. And in the past, there's always been like crypto Bitcoin people talking about Ethereum, not real people in Ethereum talking about Ethereum. So having Tom Lee and some other people rise to the occasion and talk about Ethereum has given me a little bit more confidence or at least a little bit more curiosity into the space. And I recently watched an episode from Amit's Deep Dive titled Is Ethereum Up Next? And he invited two guests who are in the space. And to me, they didn't provide a lot of technical information, but what they did do was provide a vision of why people hold this and want to hold it for the next 5 to 10 years. And they talked about some possibilities of Ethereum and its impact. So again, I'm not an expert in this space. I'm still learning a lot about this space, but I'm curious enough to make a small position. And when I look at the Ethereum chart for this past month, wow, it's been doing pretty good, up 52% alone. Now, some people say if you look at the technical analysis of the charts, it could pull back to $3,000 before it makes another jump. But Tom Lee says it could reach 15K by the end of the year. So even if it just reaches half of that, I think anything connected with Ethereum will have a positive impact or a positive effect. So I think YETH, there is some upside. I'm not sure if the dividend or distributions are as juicy as ulti, but I see a lot more upside from Ethereum and YETH. So I decided to make a small position, and the next few months I'll cover how YETH is performing in my portfolio and whether to keep it long term or maybe just to have it for a few months, make a decision on if it's worth it, and then figure it out at that time. I hope you'll stay and follow this Roth IRA series to see how YETH is performing. And that's episode number 3. I hope you got a little bit of value in today's episode. If you did, like this video. And if you want to follow my journey, subscribe. Thank you very much for watching this video. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video. As always, this video is for entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as financial advice. Consult with a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Take care.